9 feet wide and 6 feet high. Jim Penniston got close enough to touch the side of this thing, and he saw strange symbols on the hull.
Penniston transcribed 6 symbols etched in the craft's surface. Most of the symbols are composed of straight lines and symmetrical.
People have been trying to decipher that writing for years, thinking maybe it's Egyptian, maybe it's hieroglyphic, maybe it's pictographs. Clearly, there was a message there that we still haven't deciphered to this very day.
Some witnesses claim that the UFO left physical evidence behind.
There were indentations in the ground where this thing had landed.
Okay, we're now approaching Erie within about 25, 30 feet. Hey, this is Erie. This is strange. Erie, tell me, want to look at the spots in the ground?
Bear in mind, of course, this is the middle of winter. The ground was very hard. Those indentations had to have been made by something that weighed several tons, and there were 3 of these indentations.
Plaster casts were made of the indentations. When plotted, they allegedly formed an equilateral triangle.
It was almost as if this craft had come down on a landing strut, so some sort of tripod-like device.
There was no conventional aircraft in 1980 known to have a triangular-shaped landing pad that was equilateral. On the following night, 5 soldiers, led by Colonel Charles Halt, investigate the site. They discover what they feel to be indisputable evidence of anomalous activity.
But it had left physical trace evidence.
And witness an alarming event.
It was back.
December 26, 1980, midnight. 80 U.S. Air Force personnel allegedly witness an unknown bright object land in Rendlesham Forest, England.
Not just had this UFO been seen by these trained, reliable military witnesses, but it had left physical trace evidence. It had left indentations in the ground where it had come down.
On the following night, a squad of soldiers surveys the area with a Geiger counter and detect abnormally high traces of radiation.
What kind of readings we getting? Anything? 7 tenths, yeah. 7 tenths right there in the center?
The most significant development in terms of the evidence was that they recorded levels which peaked, critically, they peaked in those 3 holes where the thing had come to rest.
The Ministry of Defense released 38 pages of documents relating to the Rendlesham sighting. Most of the file is correspondence to and from residents curious about the reported event. But one interdepartmental memo contains a chilling sentence.
Our defense intelligence staff subsequently assessed the levels of radiation as, quote, significantly higher than background, unquote. It is absolutely official. It's there in black and white in a Ministry of Defense document written by their scientific and technical intelligence specialists, yes. Unlike many UFO stories, this can be backed up as an audit trail of verifiable documents bearing out the very things that we've been speaking about.
Nick Pope gave us information about documentation that we didn't even know existed, and that makes it all the more valid to me. It's really taken this investigation to a whole new level for me.
Experts believe that some military bases around the world have long secret histories of UFO encounters.
There are many hundreds of cases of encounters between military aircraft and UFOs.
The team tries to find an explanation for these disturbing sightings.
You know, I'm going over some of these archival materials here, and I'm finding out that there's a pretty strong correlation between military and UFO sightings. In July 1945, we actually detonated our first atomic bomb test. And 2 years later, also in July, we have the Roswell crash.
And the Roswell crash is what, 100 miles away from Alamogordo?
Ever since 1947, there has been a correlation between possible UFO sightings and the testing, manufacturing, and storage of nuclear weapons. Is it only a coincidence that Roswell is barely 100 miles from Trinity, New Mexico, the site of the world's first nuclear explosion?
And here's this case in Pasco, Washington, 1945. A UFO was caught on radar at a naval air station. It was flying over Hanford Engineering Works, which was a major manufacturer of plutonium.
That's right, and Hanford later became a major nuclear power facility, so the nuclear power industry has stayed there really for over 60 years.
In 1945, Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee experienced numerous UFO sightings. We now know the lab was a top-secret atomic bomb plant. In 1965, Edwards Air Force Base in California spotted 12 luminous UFOs on radar.
This is the tower in Edwards. We have an object now. We have some confirmed reports of unidentified flying objects in your area. Unidentified flying saucers? They have been confirmed on radar.
F-106 interceptors made visual contact.
I have another red light moving very rapidly. He's flashing white and green. Definitely isn't an aircraft.
The F-106 jets carried Genie nuclear-tipped rockets with its weaponry. Did this nuclear technology trigger a UFO visit?
If there's a link between UFOs and nuclear weapons, I mean, what do you think is going on? Are they spying on the technology? Are they interested in nuclear technology? Or maybe they're trying to prevent nuclear technology?
I think they are monitoring us. I think they are spying on us. But the big point is this, that every time you see UFOs that are invading the airspace over nuclear weapons facilities that are highly sensitive military installations, they don't even bother to be stealthy because they are entering our airspaces with such impunity over these nuclear weapon sites, they don't even care if they're being seen or not.
Strange to be back here. This was the hut row here where weapons were stored in the ATF fire team facility down there.
Colonel Halt served as Deputy Base Commander at Bentwaters during the UFO sighting at Rendlesham Forest. He will neither confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons on the base.
You have to imagine, he's the guy who was sitting with his finger on a nuclear button, even though he can't say it, because you can't talk about American nuclear weapons on UK soil.
A key security component of the base is the watchtower, located just to the north of the hot row. It provides a view of the entire area and the Rendlesham Forest site. The team meets Gary Heseltine, a former Air Force policeman with experience in securing nuclear sites.
I've long been fascinated by the Rendlesham Forest case because between 1983 and 1989 I served in the Royal Air Force as a police officer, and on 2 nuclear facilities you always had a high tower. The significance of the tower was that it was above the tree line and it had a 360 view.
Colonel, this is unbelievable. What a view. You can see everything from up here.
Yeah, one thing you have to keep in mind, the trees are much higher now. We had a 360 panorama from up here before. We would never let the trees grow this high for security reasons. And from here, the tower operator had a fantastic view of everything for miles around.
So if somebody were up here, he could see everything that was going on over in that area that night, on both nights.
But with somebody up here?
This type of tower would have to be manned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So, Colonel, I suspect that there was somebody up here. Have you any knowledge of anybody up here?
Oh, yes. In fact, I know who was up here very well.
In November 2007, Colonel Halt received an email from one of the guards who was posted in the observation tower that night in 1980.
He has given me quite a bit of correspondence, and he verifies the fact that that night when he was in the tower, he actually saw beams coming down into the weapons storage area, simultaneous to the one we saw over our feet in the field.
Did you say there was a man up here who also saw the incident from here, and he saw beams coming down?
So this is a whole new witness to this entire case.
Well, he doesn't really want to come forward.
If a person were up here, as you've said, and could see the whole thing, including the lighthouse and the events on the ground and the forest.
We're talking about a genuine object firing beams down into a special facility, a highly secret, secure area.
So we have a whole new witness. This breaks this case wide open again.
Another piece of evidence also corroborates the alleged UFO incident. On the following night, December 26, 1980, Colonel Halt documented his encounter on a cassette recorder. It recreates his experience moment by moment and has become one of the most compelling documents in UFO history.
Unreal. What is it? We don't know, sir.
The team retraces the steps of Colonel Halt's UFO encounter that night.
This is the infamous East Gate at Woodbridge. This is where the event actually started.
Colonel Halt arrived at the site with 5 servicemen after being told by the other police